My pen paused just above the dotted line, the ink trembling ever so slightly. Outside my office window, New York's skyline glimmered in the late afternoon sun, glass and steel catching fire in shades of gold. The air inside smelled faintly of fresh lilies, a gift from my assistant, though the faint vibration of my phone on the marble desk pulled my attention away. It was a message. A formal, curt one. Dear Ms. Bennett, unfortunately, the committee has decided not to approve your attendance at this year's Westbridge High Alumni Reunion. The corner of my mouth twitched, not quite a smile, not quite a frown. I read the sentence twice, feeling the irony settle deep in my chest. They didn't approve me. After all these years. My silk blouse whispered against my skin as I leaned back in my chair, fingers brushing the smooth leather armrest. A memory flashed, being 17, standing outside those same gymnasium doors, hearing laughter that wasn't meant for me. The pen still hovered, waiting. My signature would finalize the purchase of the Whitmore Hall, the very venue hosting the reunion. My venue, though they didn't know it yet. I pressed the pen down and signed with a slow, deliberate stroke. When I set the pen aside, I looked at the message again. Not approved, they said. I let the words echo for a moment, then glanced at the calendar. 2 weeks. 2 weeks until I answered them in my own way. Back then, I wasn't Ms. Bennett. I was just Haley. Haley from the wrong side of town, wearing hand-me-down jeans that never quite fit right, sneakers with frayed laces. It was senior year at Westbridge High. Everyone was buzzing about the upcoming spring gala, the kind of event that decided social hierarchies for months. I'd been saving for weeks from my part-time job at Carter's Diner, folding tips into a worn envelope in my dresser. I thought I had a chance, until I overheard them. I was walking past the library when the door swung open, and there they were, Amanda Collins, Tyler Green, and the rest of their perfect little circle. Amanda's voice dripped with sugar-coated cruelty. She actually thinks she's coming to the gala? Oh my God. Can you imagine? The group burst into laughter, and I froze, the words hitting me like a slap. Tyler smirked. Someone tell her it's not a soup kitchen. This is Westbridge, not charity night. I kept walking, head high, but my cheeks burned. My hands clenched around my books until my knuckles turned white. I told myself not to cry until I got home. When I did, my grandmother, Evelyn, was at the kitchen table, sipping tea from her favorite chipped porcelain cup. She took one look at me and knew. She didn't push for details, just reached into her cardigan pocket and pulled out a small silver key on a delicate chain. This was your grandfather's, she said softly, fastening it around my neck. It doesn't open a door anymore, Haley. But I want you to wear it and remember, the world's full of locked rooms. You'll find a way in, or you'll build your own. That night, I took the envelope of money and tucked it away, deciding I wouldn't spend it on a ticket to sit at their table. I didn't need to beg for a seat. 2 weeks later, I told my grandmother I was moving to New York after graduation. She just nodded, pride glimmering in her tired eyes. The last time I walked past the gymnasium, music was spilling out through the open doors. Prom night, laughter, the scent of expensive perfume. For a moment, I wondered what it might have been like to belong there. Then I touched the key at my throat and kept walking. New York didn't greet me with open arms. It barely noticed I existed. I rented a tiny studio in Queens where the radiator hissed all night and the smell of the neighbors' burnt toast seeped under my door. My first job was waiting tables at a cramped cafe in Midtown. I worked double shifts, memorizing the faces of regulars and the exact way they took their coffee. It wasn't glamorous. I walked home in the winter wind, shoes soaked from slush, fingers numb. Some nights, I'd stare at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, cheeks hollow, hair pulled into a messy knot, and wonder if I'd made a mistake. The turning point came on a Thursday morning when a woman named Margaret O'Connell sat in my section. She was elegant in a way that made people lower their voices, pearl earrings, a tailored navy suit, and eyes sharp enough to cut glass. She ordered black coffee and avocado toast, then noticed the notepad tucked under my arm. "You write?" she asked. I hesitated. Trying to. That trying led to a conversation, and that conversation led to a meeting in her office the next week. Margaret ran a boutique event planning firm, the kind that curated million-dollar weddings and corporate galas. She needed an assistant, someone who could handle the chaos and keep a cool head. The pay was barely enough to scrape by, but I took it. And I learned. I learned how to negotiate with florists who doubled their prices, how to smooth over a disaster when the wrong wine shipment arrived, and how to keep calm when a CEO's assistant screamed about tablecloth colors. I learned how to make a budget stretch, how to find beauty in details, and how to charm people without letting them walk over me. 3 years in, I was managing entire events on my own. 5 years in, I started my own company, Keynote Events, the name inspired by the silver key still hanging around my neck. The first year was brutal. Clients were scarce, and bills were not. But slowly, word spread. One gala turned into 5. A small conference became a national one. I booked venues across the city, sometimes even managing events for people who'd once dismissed me in high school. They never recognized me, or maybe they did, and just didn't want to admit it. Through it all, I kept my success quiet. Social media showed coffee cups and city sunsets, never the luxury trips or the high-profile contracts. I let people assume I was just getting by. It was easier that way, less noise, more peace. By my 10th year in business, I owned 3 prime event spaces in Manhattan. Whitmore Hall was my newest acquisition, a crown jewel with marble floors, arched windows, and a reputation for exclusivity. When the reunion invitation had arrived, I hadn't planned to go. But when the denied entry message followed, something shifted. It wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about closing a chapter with my head held high and maybe, just maybe, reminding them that the girl they'd laughed at had built her own table. And this time, she owned the room. The night of the reunion arrived cold and sharp, the kind of January evening where the air bites at your cheeks. I arrived at Whitmore Hall an hour before the guests, wearing a floor-length black dress with a subtle shimmer that caught the light when I moved. My hair was pinned in a sleek twist, my grandmother's silver key resting against my collarbone. From the outside, the hall looked majestic, lanterns glowing along the stone steps, the soft hum of music drifting from inside. My staff bustled around, adjusting floral arrangements, polishing glassware, making sure every candle flickered at the perfect height. At 7 o'clock sharp, the first guests arrived. I stood to the side, partly in shadow, watching them trickle in. Amanda Collins was among the first, still blonde, still immaculate, still carrying herself. Like the room belonged to her. She glanced around, clearly impressed, though her expression soured when she saw me. "What are you doing here?" she asked, the words coated in polite venom. I smiled. Enjoying the view. Tyler Green arrived next, shaking snow off his coat. His eyes swept over me briefly before dismissing me entirely. I watched them move through the entryway, greeting old friends, oblivious to the undercurrent running beneath the evening. It was halfway through the cocktail hour when the murmurs began. One of the committee members had gone to the coordinator, my coordinator, asking for the manager. The manager had directed them to me. Amanda's brows furrowed as she approached. "There must be some mistake," she began. "No mistake," I said. "I own Whitmore Hall." The words landed like a dropped glass, silent for a moment, then shattering in 100 directions. Conversations faltered. Eyes turned toward me. Tyler gave a short, incredulous laugh. "You own this place?" "Yes." I stepped forward, my heels clicking against the marble, voice steady. "And tonight I'm closing it." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Amanda's mouth opened, then closed again. "You can't." "I can," I said, "and I have. My staff will assist you in finding another venue for the rest of your festivities." I let my gaze sweep the room, meeting the eyes of people who had once looked through me. "Consider this, my RSVP." For a moment, no one moved. Then the discomfort spread. Awkward shifting, hushed whispers. I saw faces turn pink with embarrassment, others pale with shock. Someone muttered, "Is this a joke?" I shook my head. Not a joke. Just a reminder that doors swing both ways. Sometimes they close, and sometimes you're the one holding the key. I touched the silver charm at my neck for emphasis. Amanda's composure cracked first. You've been planning this? I shrugged. Let's just say, I've been planning something for a very long time. Tyler stepped closer, lowering his voice as if that would soften the blow. This is petty, Haley. Maybe, I said, leaning in slightly, but it's also poetic. I could feel the shift in the air, pride deflating, confidence unraveling. And under it all, a strange, quiet satisfaction bloomed in my chest. Not because I'd embarrassed them, but because I'd reminded myself just how far I'd come. When the last guest left, escorted politely but firmly by my team, I stood in the center of the empty hall. The candles still glowed, the music still played, but the room felt different, lighter, somehow. I looked up at the high-arched ceiling and let out a slow breath. For years, I'd imagined what I'd say if I ever faced them again. But in the end, I didn't need a grand speech. Just the truth, spoken plainly. And the truth was, I owned a room. The morning after the reunion that wasn't, my inbox was full. Some messages were curt, half apologies tangled with half accusations. Others were longer, dripping with nostalgia and selective memory, pretending the cruelty of the past had never happened. Amanda's email was the most carefully crafted. She regretted the misunderstanding and asked if there was any way the reunion could still happen at Whitmore Hall. I stared at her message for a long moment before hitting reply. Amanda, I'm open to a conversation, but there will be conditions. Haley. By that afternoon, 3 members of the reunion committee were seated in my office. The floor-to-ceiling windows framed the winter skyline behind me, and the smell of fresh coffee filled the space. I kept my voice calm, my tone measured. I'm not here to gloat, I began. But I am here to set terms. If this reunion happens here, it's going to happen differently than you planned. Amanda's eyes narrowed slightly, but she stayed silent. First, I said, the event will be open to everyone from our class, no exceptions. No committee approval. If someone wants to attend, they get a seat. Tyler shifted in his chair. That's a lot of people. I smiled. You'll manage. Second, I continued, part of the ticket proceeds will go toward a scholarship fund for underprivileged students at Westbridge. We'll name it after Evelyn Bennett, my grandmother. Amanda hesitated. That's generous. It's necessary, I said firmly. And third, you're going to give the microphone to people who've never had the chance to speak. Not just the cheer captains and class presidents. I want to hear from the quiet ones, the overlooked, the people you forgot existed. The room was silent for a beat too long. Then Amanda nodded, her jaw tight. If we agree to this, you'll let us use the hall? I leaned back in my chair, fingers resting on the silver key at my neck. Yes, but you need to understand something. This isn't about me forgiving you. This is about making sure the space I own is used for something better than exclusion. Tyler frowned. So, this is your way of teaching us a lesson? I met his eyes. No. This is my way of giving you a chance to teach yourselves one. When they left, I knew the decision wasn't easy for them. Pride is a stubborn thing. But if they wanted the hall, they have to meet my terms. And deep down, I hoped they would. Not because they deserved my help, but because I believed in second chances, even for people who never gave me one. That night, I sent the final email. You meet the conditions. The hall is yours for the reunion. I'll be there, not as an outsider, not as a guest, but as the woman who owns the key. 2 months later, Whitmore Hall was filled with familiar faces, but this time, the air felt different. The seating chart included every name from our graduating class. People who had once been invisible now sat at the center tables, sharing stories that drew real laughter. The scholarship fund jar sat near the entrance, already heavy with envelopes and checks. Amanda moved through the crowd in a red dress, her smile polite but softer somehow. She approached me during a lull in the evening. I'll admit, she said quietly, I didn't think you'd go through with it. I tilted my head. Neither did I, until I realized it wasn't about you at all. She nodded, glancing toward the stage where a shy man named Daniel, The one everyone had called Invisible Dan was thanking the crowd for supporting the scholarship. "Guess we were wrong about a lot of people," she said. The rest of the night unfolded like a slow release of old tension. Apologies slipped into conversations, sometimes awkward, sometimes heartfelt. Not everyone changed, but a few did, and that was enough. When the final toast was made, I stepped outside for a breath of cold air. The city's winter lights shimmered in the distance. I reached for the silver key at my neck, feeling the familiar weight. It had been with me in every small apartment, every late-night planning session, every contract I'd signed. It had reminded me, again and again, of my grandmother's words, "You'll find a way in, or you'll build your own." I thought of the girl I'd been at 17, standing outside locked doors, wondering if I'd ever belong. Tonight, I didn't just belong, I decided who got to walk through those doors. Amanda passed me on her way out, pausing for a brief handshake. Tyler followed a few minutes later, giving a small nod of acknowledgement. No fanfare, no dramatic speeches. Just quiet understanding. When the last guest left, I locked the hall myself, the silver key cool between my fingers. As I turned away, a thought settled in, sharp, clear, final. I hadn't needed their approval. I never had. And the sweetest part? I walked away in heels.